everyone, and welcome to a short film documentary created by myself. My name is María Jiménez. I am a student at American University completing a project for my Policing Beyond the Police course. Except that this is a project that is very meaningful to me, and I hope to be able to expand upon this. And I appreciate everyone's support in being involved with this project. And so, with that, I present to you today's policing of immigrant communities, current impacts on the DMV or DC, Maryland, Virginia, and community and Magic Valley, Idaho regions.
A shared written statement from the community of Southern Idaho. I worked in a Head Start, which provides services to any children regardless of their immigration status. Several children have already dropped out, and the reasoning was their family was moving back to their country in fear of getting deported. Looking at what's currently going on in the DC metro area, there are many movements that are intersectional. Luz, thank you so much for joining me today to speak about sort of what's going on in today's environment and understanding what's happening in our immigrant communities. Would you please go ahead and introduce yourself, the work you do, and what community is or means to you?
So my name is Luz. My pronouns are she, her, ella. And I am my full-time or like my real-time career right now. I'm a teacher union organizer. But outside of that, I have been organizing in the immigrant rights movement for a very long time, since I want to say about 9 years old. I'm undocumented myself. I'm a DACA recipient. And so a lot of my work really stems from like getting involved really young. I attended my first rally when I was 9. I organized my first walkout at like 15, and then I continued to do my work and advocacy and social justice oriented work. Organized with United We Dream for a while, and now I'm kind of building grassroots level work with the work that I do with community folks here in Montgomery County, Maryland. I kind of organize people to really bring awareness about what's going on, while also protecting our community, especially now as the Trump administration has been attacking every single one of us despite our immigration status. We live in a fascist regime, and so it's just important to be in community and really making sure that we protect each other in these times, and figuring out how to like come together and I guess brace ourselves for the next 4 years. In a way that we all are there for one another when, stuff hits the fan.
Hello, Isaac. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this discussion, we'll just be going through a brief understanding of what things are looking like for immigrant communities and organizing in the Magic Valley of Idaho, or relatively southern Idaho. So my first question for you is if you could please introduce yourself, the work you do, and what your community is or means to you.
Thank you. So my name is Isaac Reynolds. It's spelled ISAACREYNOLDS. I am the co-chair of the Southern Idaho chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America. We are a political organization that advocates for socialism, social justice, and a better world for all. And my community, to me, is the place where I live, and I want to make my community better for everybody. even with people who don't disagree or don't agree with me on everything. So, my main philosophy is that we have to uplift everybody, and even if that means uplifting people who don't like me or don't like what I stand for, because at the end of the day, everyone's conditions are interconnected, and if one person is going through a hard time, or if one person's conditions are bad, then everyone's conditions are bad.
Yeah. Role is ICE playing in your community and in the work that you're doing?
We've seen an uptick in immigration enforcement activities and Border Patrol in the community. Very shortly after Trump was inaugurated, a statement was put out by the county sheriff and other surrounding county sheriffs, basically stating that their intent was to completely cooperate with the Trump administration in their goals of mass deportation. All of the statements were worded exactly the same. Every now and then, someone has been reported to be deported. The main one that DSA and organizations in the Magic Valley are organizing around is a man by the name of Binod Shah. He's Bhutanese, and he unfortunately lost his green card in 2018 because he committed a crime. But at the time, Bhutan was not allowing anyone to be returned to the country. Now, Binod was complying with immigration enforcement and the police anytime he was asked to come in for an interview or to check in. Binod is married to a U.S. citizen. He has 2 children who are both U.S. citizens. One of them is less than 1 year old. So it's with his family that he would like to stay. But unfortunately, after the inauguration of Donald Trump, the country of Bhutan has accepted refugees back into the country. However, the only problem with that is the reason Binod left Bhutan to begin with is because he's not ethnically Bhutanese, but the country of Bhutan committed an ethnic cleansing back in the day, and his family had to escape Bhutan and they came to the United States. And now with Bhutan accepting immigrants, any immigrant who is not ethnically Bhutanese, they are illegally putting into India and Nepal, which puts the migrants in danger. So DSA and other organizations have been agitating for the state governor and the state senator, the senator from Idaho, Mike Simpson, who has gotten people out of detention before, to appeal to the Trump administration and to ICE to release Binod Shah and keep him safe and here with his family.
Really hear about it unless you're actively searching for this or actively looking at the organizations that are doing this work. So I think it's a lot of debate. You hear the rhetorics of anyone who has committed any crime should all be deported, or we only want criminals out, but that rhetoric is very harmful because how does that define whether a person is deserving of being in this country or not? So it's important to hear these stories and learn from them too, and actively be engaged with making sure this doesn't keep happening.
What role is ICE playing in your community or in your work in both your job?
Absolutely. So in my job aspect, I think, again, I'm a teachers union organizer, so I hear the fears and concerns that teachers have with ICE entering their schools, but also the fears that students have about ICE coming into their homes and taking away their parents or themselves, right? And so there's that extra layer of like the fear that teachers feel in schools and how the schools are preparing situations like this from happening. I know a couple weeks ago, maybe a couple months ago actually, no, weeks ago, we had an instance in DC where ICE came outside of an elementary school in DC, and they were targeting a nurse who was contracted by the I don't know who they were contracted by, but ICE was outside of the school, and the teachers in the school didn't know how to react and how to protect their community in the school, the students. But admin really stepped in and kind of just made sure that they didn't enter the school. They had their own protocols in place, and so this is a real fear. A lot of people don't think that that's what's happening right now.
How your experience, like being who you are and the work you do too. So
Yeah. Example.
mm-hmm.
Like when it first cuando comenzó, right? When he was
Mm-hmm.
proposed in office, and they're like here, they're like helping ICE. Pues they're not like
Yeah.
going. I don't think it's crazy, It's not
Yeah.
crazy, but like they're not gonna like be easy on you. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's like with my niece and my nephew and their daycare. There's like a little girl that her mom it's just her mom
Mm-hmm.
and it's just her mom, right? Like solo ella y la mamá.
Yeah.
And la mamá got stopped, and this little girl's my nephew's like bestie,
Mm-hmm.
or was. And um the mom never came back because and like nobody knew what happened
Mm-hmm.
till the next day when the lady called. Apparently, I don't know, but the little girl was living there for like a good 2 weeks, I think,
Oh wow.
until it came for her because they deported the mom. Like there was no like no say. There was just like
Mm-hmm.
no, how do you
No
explain, like no
support.
mercy. No
Yeah.
mercy for the lady. Like they just processed her and la mandaron para atrás, and like CPS came by and took her kid like 2 weeks later. Seeing it again as an adult and working in an elementary school,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, that's kind of, it was like really, it was a little like, it was okay. Like it was, I was happy that I'm an adult that the kids trust,
Yeah.
and too, because I work with like all the EOLs, and a lot of them, like within the first month of Trump's pues in the office, there was like 7 families that went back to their home countries
Wow.
because then they were like leaving like
Mm-hmm.
all at once because they like I talked to like some parents, and then just like we'd rather just go right now before anything crazy happens,
Mm-hmm.
like before, like ahorita que estamos bien, todo está tranquilo, might as well just go now because we don't want to wait for anything crazy to happen, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just some, I don't know, a mí como que me dolió el corazón de pollo.
How do you tell
Toda la-
them that they're gonna be okay when you don't know?
exactly, or especially here, like, oh, sabía que va a pasar esto y este otro. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
la única cosa que te puedo decir que like, you're in here, you're fine, you're safe, we got here, we're
Uh-huh.
grateful.
Uh-huh.
Like, let's try to focus on what we can do right now, okay? Like, that's all I can do.
Yeah.
Um, I remember like my boss, the principal,
Uh-huh.
like when he heard that they were gonna like there's gonna be ice raids or whatever here.
Yeah.
Well, it hasn't been, but the rumors and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He comes in like once every 2 weeks. Like, are you guys okay? Have you guys heard anything? Like,
Wow.
he's not sure. Like, even he doesn't know how much
Yeah.
like they will go.
Mm-hmm.
What's it called? What lines are they willing to cross?
Yeah.
Because he's like, whatever happens, like if they come in, like, what do we do? And I was like, what do you mean, what do we do?
Like
Yeah,
he hasn't set up a
yeah,
plan to.
yeah, no, but like he doesn't even know, like,
Wow.
see if they would like go beyond the school doors,
Yeah.
like stuff like that. Like he even hit him was like, even he was like a little bit like así como paranoid,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
about it because of how bad they thought it was gonna get or might come to be. I don't know. To me, I was just like, it took a little toll on me for a little bit just because
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I was reliving what I didn't realize how much my childhood like his first presidency like affected me
Mm-hmm.
until now that I'm an adult and I saw all these kids like go through what I went through.
Organizing, I've been really focused on making sure, like, for example, sensitive locations are intact, and so I was part of the organizing around bringing community members to come out and talk and speak in support of our Sensitive Locations Act bill here in Maryland. In the state of Maryland, we were able to push forth a bill that actually just passed both chambers a couple months ago, to make sure churches, courthouses, schools are safe spaces, and that ICE can no longer enter them. Like, that lived around fear. Like, as a person that's undocumented, I live in fear every day. You know, like, I'm scared that one day ICE is gonna come to my apartment building and enter, and I wouldn't know what to do, even though I do know what to do. You know, you never know in those instances, and it's really hard to prepare yourself, but also like being able to protect and increase ICE presence in our community. You know, we were able to work around and bring people together to start doing Know Your Rights canvassing. We've been doing it every weekend since Trump was elected, and we go into our communities, we give out red cards that have the constitutional rights of folks. We go to businesses, we talk to business owners about the rights that they have and the protections that they can put in place for their workers who are undocumented. And we also talk to community about the hotlines and the rapid response networks that are in place here in the DMV.
What does migrant justice mean?
Yeah. So DSA's position on migrant issues, we are for freedom of movement, we're for the abolition of ICE, and we're for mass amnesty of immigrants rather than mass deportation towards migrant justice. And that means, you know, putting global struggle and global solidarity ahead of everything else.
Often hard to reframe things in a small community because relatively, you know, population size, Southern Idaho has a very small population. All these towns are very rural, they're very small. Looking to pursue migrant justice, do you believe that there's alternatives to policing when it comes to immigration?
His position is the abolition of ICE, and we've held that position for quite a long time. It is pretty interesting now seeing a lot of people who don't align with us on everything coming around to that position. I welcome the abolition of ICE being a moderate position, because right now it's seen as radical, and or at least a few years ago it was seen as radical. Because people didn't really truly understand the extent of the inhumane treatment that ICE has been subjecting people to for years and decades. And not just under Trump's administration, under Biden's administration and Obama's administrations, more people were deported than under Trump, and more dollars have been spent and raised the funding of these organizations. I'm also a police abolitionist and a prison abolitionist. And I think that focusing much more on rehabilitation and prevention of crime rather than enforcement and punishment is the way forward. I imagine that the majority of crime won't happen. And in addition to that, you know, universal health care, which will provide, you know, mental health care for a lot of people, and go a long way in preventing a lot of crimes. All of these things combined is, you know, my personal vision of, you know, how an abolitionist society can be constructed.
You guys are awesome.
Work is working towards migrant justice. I think it's always been centered on migrant justice. Standing in solidarity with Kilmar Arbego Garcia, who literally had protected status and was still deported and sent to a concentration camp. And any type of right of due process is like gone. So I think right now what we need for migrant justice is just understanding like the different complexities of the barriers that people have without status right now. I've seeing people do rapid response and they go straight to the ICE raids and put their bodies on the line. I saw it's that solidarity that we've been wanting for a very long time. Migrant justice looks like having folks step up when we can't step up, supporting one another in all means necessary, supporting one another. This is not a silo thing. It's very intersectional. And so when we think about migrant justice, we have to think about housing justice and making sure that everyone has a place to live. Food justice, you know, like you have people that don't have access to fresh food and produce. Like, how can we? And people are scared. People are scared to leave their homes, to go grocery shopping, you know? Like, we need systems and networks of support to be able to provide that for our families. He's been criminalizing migration. I feel like, and even within like the immigrant community as a whole, I was canvassing and there were some gentlemen that were like waiting outside for work. In this community, it's really not popular, but it's like very common to find, you know, construction workers sitting together and waiting for a truck to come pick them up to go to work. For this instance, I actually was just like, all right, perfect. This is a perfect location to canvass, to talk to folks and let them know about their rights. Mm-hmm. I go to this group and I talk to them like, hey, like we have these red cards, please, like these are the information that you need. This is all you need to make sure that you're safe. Provide like I was just giving them like a little rundown of like an emergency plan if ICE does come to their house or their job. Mm-hmm. And this man looks at me. He's like 40 years old, I want to say, 50 years old. He looks at my face and goes, I've been here for 30 years. Not once did ICE come and take me. And then he went on and spewed the same rhetoric that the Trump administration has been putting out. Like, they're just getting criminals. They're not going to get me. I'm not a criminal. Oppress our communities. And so, you know, I looked at him in the face and I'm like, you just standing here is enough criminal for him to deport you right now. Like, he has made it a fact that even if you're here, if you're just here, you're a criminal. Mm-hmm. And that you should be deported. And he still didn't take my red cards. And unfortunately, the next day or like following weeks, I didn't see his group there anymore. And then following that, I talked to some folks in the mutual aid network that we have, the hotlines, and they told me that they took them.
It's very complicated because it makes you think about the concept of the good and bad immigrant.
Yep.
All the time, and sort of the bad hombres, like those are the only ones they care. But it's just a rhetoric to criminalize all immigrants regardless. Yep. Mm-hmm. Regardless of what they are. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether someone has committed a crime or not. Like, they should be treated with basic human respect.
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things I've been telling folks. Is just like, so what? You know, so what? Like, just any human being se merece derechos humanos. Every single human being deserves human rights.
But it's about rebuilding a system that isn't rooted in colonialism, racism, capitalism, all the things. And I think specifically, I think in the southern Idaho region, or at least just in general in Idaho, you know, we're seeing these bills being pushed forward to further criminalize immigrants, or specifically like immigrants who are undocumented, and sort of like that push for agreements with ICE to be created within local law enforcement. I'm just wondering if you've heard of the 287G that does exist. It's an agreement that has been pushed in between ICE and local like counties. It exists in 2 counties, at least in Idaho, in Canyon County and Gooding County, and they're very much in practice. Every sort of like that push for agreements with ICE to be created within local law, so that when individuals, they're not only dealing with one system of policing, they're dealing with 2 at once in these communities. But now that could look like in southern Idaho, specifically knowing that all of these things sort of exist already that are an attack on migrant communities.
Like I heard was that upwards of maybe 70% of our workforce in the Magic Valley and in Twin Falls County specifically is undocumented. And being such a large rural and agricultural like powerhouse that we are, having this crazy enforcement of immigration laws for nonviolent offenders, I might add, is directly harming not only our economy and the lives of people, but the economy of the wider region because of all of the agriculture that we export to other places in Idaho and Utah and Nevada and Wyoming and Montana as well.
At the root of it all, these are all small towns, small communities, and if we're not in solidarity with each other, then it really leaves like, what's the point?
How executive orders and immigration enforcement are affecting our work. I want to say that it's not, because we're not afraid. We're not afraid of immigration enforcement. And I will say we probably have some privilege in that area because all of us are, or the majority of us are citizens. Most of us are white. Most of us are neurotypical. Most of us are not cisgender and heterosexual, but you have to fight for a vision that works for everyone. And you have to apply that in your struggle against the current administration and the current events that are happening right now. So fight for something, not against everything, is what I'll say.
Appreciate when other people that aren't, I consider myself a farm worker. I'm not an immigrant myself, but I'm a daughter of immigrants. But looking at those considerations that like communities of farm workers, communities of immigrants, they really are, they create our communities that we exist in. And there's an important appreciation that needs to be there for us to really thrive as a community.
Alternatives to policing when it comes to immigration, or
I don't think policing should be anywhere involved in immigration. Period. I don't think any types of systems can reform this issue. Mm-hmm. Policing didn't save black folks. Policing didn't save. Who did it save? Property and white folks. People being impacted are black and brown people. Mm-hmm. And the people that are migrating and being put into this like deportation or what is it called again? Criminalization pipeline are black and brown people. Black migrants coming from different Caribbean countries and African countries, Latinos, also Afro-Latinos, like all these different communities are the ones that are being put into this immigration system. Your county up the street have 287G contracts and allows police the authority to act like ICE agents. The way that we should approach immigration is in a full-on wraparound services support system. When people come here, they deserve to have housing, they deserve to have work, they deserve to be able to build and have their families here. And so these systems are working the way they are right now to oppress our community. And so if people are given all of those resources from the jump, then we wouldn't even need police in our community. So
presenting here, we have a written statement from a community member of Southern Idaho. I work for the county in a small town as a Spanish interpreter. Never did I imagine what I was blindly missing as an outsider before working here. Maybe it was the privileged goggles I unintentionally had on. When I first started working here, I didn't notice it too much. Mind you, I started here before the current president took over, but after elections, I noticed how things changed. Maybe not necessarily changed, it's always been happening. I just noticed how smaller crimes, misdemeanors, like a DUI, were certainly treated like someone who committed a felony type of crime. Now, if someone who is undocumented, no criminal history, good record aside from entering the country illegally, are now issued ICE holds with no hesitation. Suddenly, getting a DUI as an undocumented person is labeled as a terrible crime, as say, for example, murder. People are being removed and sent back to their home countries, labeled as criminals over a misdemeanor offense that any documented person could commit and walk away with a slap on the hand. Now, I'm not saying a DUI is okay. On the contrary, I know the dangers of being under the influence while being on the road. I'm simply saying someone's life, along with their family's life, is being torn apart over a mistake that someone else could get a slap on the hand for. A list of anyone who's undocumented and on probation was requested to essentially pick them up, maybe question them, and not 100% sure. Not much info was actually given to me. Never in my life did I imagine I'd witness someone being detained by ICE. The first person I saw get detained was this older gentleman who was doing everything the way he should have to get off probation. He was on top of his fees, and overall just a nice gentleman. He arrived to his appointment early. He beat the ICE officers to the office. I had to tell him to sit in the hall, knowing what was about to happen. A few short minutes later, the ICE officer walked into the office asking where he was because they were ready. I stayed in my office for a little bit and walked out while he was being chained. Legitimately chained like an animal, not just handcuffed. He was a non-violent older gentleman, yet he was being treated like a rabid dog. It took everything in me to not cry as I was instructed to tell him that if he was released from ICE custody, he had to get a hold of our office to reschedule his appointment. He handed me his car keys with tears in his eyes and asked me to call his daughter to tell her what had happened. Before he was escorted out, I verified his daughter's number with him, terrified for what I was about to do. As a daughter of hardworking immigrants myself, I felt like I was almost living one of the scariest experiences I always prayed to God I didn't have to go through. Except I wasn't living it. I was about to be the person to give someone one of my worst fears. I could feel my chest tighten, my eyes start to fill with tears. I took a deep breath and dialed his daughter's number, preparing myself to give her terrible news. I woke her up from her sleep. I asked her if she was so-and-so's daughter. Groggily, she said yes. I proceeded to give her the news her father had been detained by ICE, and she needed to come pick up his car. She asked me to repeat myself, a lot more alert now, and so I repeated myself, starting her real-life nightmare. She started to cry, asking me what she could do, where to call, why it happened, but I had no response. All I knew was that he was part of the list they had requested, and they showed up to pick him up. No idea why he was selected. Simply being part of that moment, being part of that nightmare for not only him but his family was a lot for me mentally. Never imagining I would experience or witness something like that. I thank God every day for blessing me to never have to live that nightmare personally. Inmates are picked up consistently, undocumented inmates to be exact. There are also undocumented people who do terrible, terrible things and have caused the good ones to also be labeled as terrible. One person can ruin it for everyone. For a while, there were rumors that ICE was driving up and down the roads, hunting for people. The person renting out our home claimed that ICE had parked outside on the driveway on 2 separate occasions doing nothing except just watching the neighborhood. Yet I lived in that neighborhood my whole childhood and no such thing ever happened. It's frustrating that rumors like that rise and cause unnecessary fear to our community. Many others, like I once did, have their privilege goggles on and don't realize the effect their words can have.
How is the current administration or state, generally the DMV, actions affecting your work and your community?
So I can take it in different layers in terms of immigration and how its administration has impacted. We have DC, right? DC is taxation without representation. They are not a state, but yet people are paying taxes. They are dealing with so many issues within their own county council, within their own city, gentrification, and the pushing off of Chocolate City. I think the Trump administration has had a big handful on the way that DC organizers have been moving. Every single bill that revolves around different things has to go through Congress. Even if it's a local issue, has to go through Congress. And now, recently, I think yesterday, House Republicans are trying to get rid of the Sanctuary Values Act in DC. And this is a bill that we fought, and I was part of this fight, that we fought for since 2018. We fought for this bill because we knew that everybody, like Mayor Bowser was talking about, oh, this is a sanctuary city, no one should be scared about it. It was just blanket statements. We knew that when people went into courthouses, ICE was waiting for them right outside. And so, we fought for this bill for a very long time, from 2018, 2017 to 2021. We finally passed the bill in 2021. People felt safe. In Virginia, you have governors like this crazy governor who decided to make a statewide 287G, where every single police in the state can work with ICE. I've seen videos of military tanks going into communities and coming out and detaining folks. And you see high militarization of police, and then you see like that impacting statewide issues. And Virginia is just the border of DC. Like right across the river, you're dealing with those things that Virginia immigrant community is dealing with. They've already were dealing with Farmville, which was like an inhumane detention center that they had there. And now here in Maryland, we saw the pushback. We saw the pushback when we were trying to pass the Sanctuary Values Act. 3 counties that have 287G contracts. And so this statewide bill was to end those collaborations. But Democrats bended over backwards for the Republicans because they were like, oh, the Trump administration is going to grab us. They're going to defund us. They're going to do this. And the Republicans were like, oh, we're going to keep our communities safe by making police deputized to get rid of illegal immigrants. So, the impacts of the Trump administration are affecting both local politics and statewide politics. Our communities, our organizers are burning out because we're always on rapid response mode. Rapid response work is important, yes, but when you have hundreds of people that are doing rapid response every single day, there just needs to be a sense of grounding, but also taking a step back on how we can heal together as a collective to be able to move forward. I think we need all hands on deck. I just think that the urgency is there and the calling is there for any organizer to come out and organize and build coalitions and collectives like we have. But you don't have to have a degree, you don't have to have anything, like I organized when I was in high school, like a community that's willing to support you while you're doing this work. And don't reinvent the wheel either. Because I am for sure certain in any type of community there's already work being done. Whether it's mutual aid groups, whether it's nonprofits, whether it's like people just doing things with their clubs and organizations. Happiest, friendliest people are organizers because they want to build that relationship with you. So, yeah.
Shared with us all today a written statement from the community of Southern Idaho. The year was 1989, and I remember being so eager to start kindergarten. My mother told me I had to wait for my grandpa to come back. Come back? Yes, return from the magical land of hope. At least that is what my 4-year-old mind thought about it. Sometimes it was called El Norte, but its actual name was the United States of America. My grandpa had traveled there to make sure our family had a place where to live and to make sure there were jobs available for them. The communication back to Michoacan wasn't easy, so all we could do was wait until my grandpa's return. Every morning I would see all the kids from El Barrio walk to kindergarten, but not me, because as soon as my grandpa came back for the family, I would be going to kindergarten in El Norte. I didn't need kindergarten from El Barrio. I was going to learn English in El Norte. Finally, the wait was over, and Grandpa came back. He had secured a home and jobs for the family. The adventure finally began. We were finally going to start traveling to El Norte, and most importantly, my wait to start kindergarten was coming to an end. My family sold their home, and we packed the bare minimum into an ugly green station wagon. Our family of 9 traveled to El Norte in that green station wagon. I have very vague memories of the actual trip, but I do remember my family crossing a river. I remember I crossed that river on my grandpa's shoulder. It wasn't my choice to come here. My family brought me here. It was a decision made with hopes of me and my siblings having better opportunities for a better future. I don't know what life would have been like if my family hadn't chosen to come to the United States, but I do know life here hasn't been easy. Since the first day I came to the United States, since the first day I started kindergarten, I felt out of place. I didn't speak the language or dress like the rest of my peers. I carried a secret none of them carried. It was so taboo to talk about it, and no one could ever find out. We were here illegally, and we didn't have a social security card. Whatever this meant to my 4-year-old mind meant I had no idea. But I grew up with the biggest secret that weighed a ton on my heart and my mind. Really early on in my education career, I fell out of love for education. It didn't matter if I graduated high school. I would never be able to go to college. I want to say it was the year 1995 or 1996 when ICE agents raided the apartments where my family lived. My mother told me to go hide in a bedroom upstairs. As the ICE agent was walking my mother out, I poked my head out. My mother cried and asked him not to take me. He didn't. He ignored me and I stayed behind, watching how this agent took my mother away. I'll never forget the fear in my mother's eyes. Thankfully, my grandparents stepped up and took care of me and my siblings until my parents returned. Once again, my parents traveled across the river to come back to their family here at El Norte. At the age of 14 years old, I became a teenage mom, and at 18 years old, I had my second daughter. I was able to be a stay-at-home mom for most of my daughter's childhood. The fear and the secrets continued to live in the back of my mind. Although being a young mother was hard, I was able to shield my daughters from that secret and fear I always have lived with. After all, they were U.S. citizens and did not deserve to live with the burden of the unspoken fear. Just like that, life continued. However, during Obama's presidency, a little hope came. DACA was introduced, but there was another hurdle to conquer. To qualify for DACA, I needed a high school diploma or a GED. I did it, and in less than 3 months, I had my GED completed. I was finally able to apply and I got granted DACA. I was able to get a social security card and a driver's license. Just like that, the secret I carried for so many years wasn't as heavy anymore. I finally started my first job. However, having DACA doesn't take away the full burden of the secret. DACA means every 18 months you have to pay to reapply to keep your DACA active. The fear every time DACA is put in jeopardy is unexplainable. I have lived in the United States for 36 years of my 40 years of life. This is the only home I have ever known. However, the land of hope and magic has not been so magical, especially after our new president, Donald Trump, entered its second term of presidency. The fear and the burden of the secret of being illegal has grown in every person that came here in hope of finding that magical land. Here in Idaho, specifically in the Magic Valley area, even a simple speeding infraction can now get you deported. Unfortunately, that fear grows every day with new laws going into place every day. We continue with everyday life, not losing the hope of finding the magic we one day dreamed of finding in El Norte.
Thank you. for watching today's documentary. I hope you enjoyed and that you're able to take away a learning whether about yourself or your community or ways that you could become involved or with the movement. As we may recall, migrant justice is a very intersectional issue and it means different things to everyone, but ultimately the root of solidarity is the key, whether you're an immigrant yourself, you're from an immigrant community, you're a child of immigrants, you're neighbors with immigrants, or even if you do not know anyone who is an immigrant, the solidarity is the surface level that you're reaching for. And I hope that this has highlighted a lot of impacts of community and that policing of communities is harmful and promotes violence rather than care and safety. And I hope that this recording of current history in this documentary is able to one day just be that history and that we have created alternatives or rather rebuild ways and pathways for our immigrant communities to be treated as humans and to be able to have the right to live in well-being and health and in community. So once again, my name is María Jiménez. Thank you so much for watching. And that's all.